Hello and welcome to the Box Score Network YouTube channel. I am Simon Shortt. Joining me tonight is Ben Parker. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. We're alerted.
Yeah, man, we're coming at you after night two of the NFL draft. Thank you all so much for being here. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like this video. If you didn't catch our reaction to Thursday night to the first round, you can check that out. That's me and Austin Freed. Again, we are coming at you, Box Score Network, all things NFL draft all week long, every single day. We had a bunch of stuff in the run up every single day. Reaction last night, reaction tonight. I will be posting draft grades division by division over the weekend once day three is wrapped up. But here we are to react to day two. So we're going to kind of do this reverse order from what we did with the first round. Ben, I'm going to hit a couple topics with you. I'm going to hit the best available because there's obviously a huge name that we just, I'm sorry, we have to talk about. We're not ESPN where we're going to lead everything with it, but like at a certain point, everyone's got to just kind of talk about what's going on here. So we'll talk about our best available. We'll talk about some trends we saw across these two rounds. And then we're gonna do a little, we'll do a little preemptive grading. We'll talk about that later. I'll give you guys some insight into some thoughts of how I grade things and when I do my draft grades, and we'll get Ben's take, and we'll see how these teams are doing through two nights of the NFL draft. But Ben, let's start with the major headline here, the major story. Shedeur Sanders is still on the board, a player that as recently as Sunday, Monday, there was still some conversation that like, hey, some people in the Giants like still kind of just want to take him at three. Um, and here we are, 102 picks later, and Shedeur Sanders is still on the board. What's your what's your reaction to that? What do you think about it happening? What do you think is the reason why potentially, and where's the slide gonna stop eventually?
I'm gonna give you a long answer, but let me answer it quick first. I think teams don't like him and or his father somewhere in there. I think that's what's happened. Now, let me full disclosure here. I was and still am of the belief when I looked at the tape, not the combine workout stuff, the practices, the tape. I like Shedeur slightly better than Cam Ward. I know I was in the minority on that. We discovered that weeks and weeks and weeks ago. All right, me and Bucky Brooks, I think, are the only two people on the planet who like Shedeur better than Cam Ward. That's fine. Cam Ward was going number one. We've known that for weeks, right?
Bucky
And
Brooks,
I,
a true defensive player.
yes,
Just give me the drop back accurate quarterback. That's gonna give me a rest on the bench for a little bit. Love Bucky.
I totally understood too that Shedeur might fall out of the first round. We even talked about that, how that was a real possibility. We even talked about how the guy you like, Jackson Dart, might even supplant him as QB2. All of that's fine. I thought all of that was well within any reason of, hey, you look at the film, you see this guy, his size, his arm, whatever. That was all fine. But then when you start to get into the second round and out, and into the third round and out, and he's not there. And then when you realize that both Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Milroe both went ahead of him, you realize there's no way on earth that NFL people can look at the tape, the games of the past two seasons, and try to think that Shedeur is QB5 out of this class, not the entire league, right?
Hmm.
And so you realize, well, in some part, first round, his slippiness because teams just don't like his play on the field. That's totally fine. Because again, even if you didn't like him personally, if he was such a great quarterback on the field, teams would take him anyway. All right, we'll deal with it. But that play, them not liking him, pushes him back. But then somewhere in there, boy, that report that we've heard all kinds of false reports the past 2 or 3 weeks. But that report that this was the worst interview we've ever done, whoever that came from must have been legit because
Yep.
somewhere teams don't like Shedeur, and maybe Dion's a part of that, but it's got to be Shedeur himself. Otherwise, they just tell Dion to be quiet. So it's got to be Shedeur that they don't like and they don't want to deal with. And you mentioned it even months ago, the comment about the offensive lineman, him throwing them under the bus, back during the season with Colorado. Somewhere between that and the interview has got to be why he's still sitting here after 3 rounds.
You mentioned the Colorado comment, the O line comment. Remember, I forgot about this until it was on the broadcast today, or maybe it was on Twitter. Either way, um, remember when he was like publicly trash talking on Twitter, like tweeting at players that have transferred out of Colorado,
Right.
and then Dion was also in that, like saying like you don't
Right.
matter, like you're about like
Yes.
nobody cares about you. Like I'm sorry, like even take away just like the bad. press and the bad, negative attention and the drama, all that flashy stuff that, they do talk about on ESPN on the talk show. You just have to be a leader, man. You can't be the quarterback and have people distrust you or think you're gonna mess up and say Mike Williams got traded from the Jets because Aaron Rodgers said he didn't like make the first down marker, and that's Aaron Rodgers in year 27 doing that or whatever it is. Like you can't think your rookie quarterback is gonna come in and like if a player leaves in free agency the next year as a second year player, Shedeur's like tweeting at him that he's like you can't have that. Here's what I think it is, because I've gotten a lot of people asking me this, and number one, it's the tape. Number one, it's the ranking. I think Shedeur. Now I have him rated above Jackson Dart. I think you put them neck and neck right now today, and Shedeur is a better quarterback. I think he can run an offense better. I think he's a more accurate passer. Um, I think he reads the field better, but Shadeur's skill set matches a team that's already a winning team. He's an executor, not an elevator, right? So you want to
Mm-hmm.
get him in with a good
Yeah.
offensive line, good receivers, a good coach, and say, hey, you just got to steer the ship. It's already built for you. There's a crew here that's doing what they do. There's someone that had built the ship for you, that set that drew the map to tell you where to go. You just got to steer in the right direction. The problem is if there's a winning team, they either A, already have a quarterback, or B, have a winning culture that they don't need to invite that into.
Yeah.
Now, I said this after last night because, you fall out of round one and it was like, okay, we kind of knew that was a possibility. Well, we knew the next team up that made sense to look for a quarterback was Cleveland, right? Especially because they ended up with two picks early on day two, 33 and 36, and that would have been perfect even before they made the trade. I was like, it didn't really hit me that Cleveland had the first pick in the second round. And I was like, oh my God, they can just take Travis Hunter too and take Sanders at 33. Like how that's the easiest thing in the world. How did that not come up more? Um, and then Cleveland trades the pick. And remember a couple months ago, Ben, it's on this channel. We did a War Room series, Shedeur and Travis Hunter, Dion edition, Colorado edition.
We did.
And we didn't think the Sanders family and Colorado crew would want to go to Cleveland. Now that got walked back, I think mostly, especially for Shedeur,
Mm-hmm.
when it was like, well, we can't really pick and choose. But I partly wonder if trading out of Hunter, Dion was like, nah, we can't go to Cleveland. Like this team they took Dylan Gabriel in the third round. Like they wanted to take a quarterback. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder,
They
I
did.
wonder if they would have pulled the trigger still, if they called after they made the Hunter trade and they were like, hey, we would still take Shedeur at 33. And he was like, no, we can't do that. Now they probably regret that after all this because I thought the run was going to come in the mid 40s, right? Because then the next team after that was the Saints. But all the information we were getting in the last 2, 3 weeks was they were like New York, where they favored Shuck or Dart
Mm-hmm.
stylistically,
Yeah.
build, like potential mobility, all that stuff. They would want one of those guys, and pick 40. Hello and behold, Tyler Shuck. It is what it is. But after that, it was like New York could look at him. Miami could look at him. The Rams traded back could look at him. I thought that was going to happen. Um, Seattle had two picks there, 50 and 52. They take a quarterback. I thought that would have been interesting. Um, Austin mentioned the Colts at 45, so that would have been interesting. So there were plenty of teams. I really thought that was the run. I thought one of those teams was going to end up with them. And then never mind all the picks the Raiders had today, right? Especially ending there with 98 and 99. Um, Instead they go two offensive linemen. Love that. But I really thought that floor was going to be like pick 52. Like Seattle takes them with that last pick that they had. And we'll talk about Seattle and what they're doing with quarterback in a little while. But yeah, I thought that was going to be the floor for him. So now I have no idea, right? Because now you're talking about a day
Right.
three pick where it's going to be a lot. Like ironically, the attention is going to grow now
Uh-huh.
that he is a later and later and later pick. And at some point that I'm going to say it again, that chasm of like the attention for the fact that we got this guy in the fifth round isn't worth it. We're trying to win football games. We're going to training camp.
Right.
If I'm a head coach and I'm walking off the bus to get into training camp and I've got all these reporters around me and media people and I've got all this stuff going on, I'm expecting to hear about like the quarterback battle. Oh, my first round pick, how's he looking? Oh, what's the new defensive scheme gonna look like? I'm getting all, and they're like, hey, your fifth round pick, your third string quarterback. Let's talk about him for 15 minutes. I don't want that. I don't want that, man. So I don't know what's happening with Shedeur. Now, listen, the Steelers could take him in the fourth round, and I would love to see Steeler fans' reaction to that. Um, it'll probably be one of these teams we've talked about at some point, and they just take them on day three. So whether it's the Steelers, whether it's the Dolphins, whether it's I mean, it's not going to be the Seahawks at this point, whether it's the Rams, right? The Rams have a couple late picks. Um, so we'll see, man. But I don't know right now. I don't know what the deal is. Anything else on Shedeur for you?
I'm more than willing to, and I've been wrong on quarterbacks before. I'm more than willing to admit that, hey, I'm probably wrong on Shedeur since nobody else saw what I see there on the field. But again, that doesn't explain why he's sitting there in round four.
Right.
It's a personality slash
Yeah.
opinion slash Dion thing that's drug him down. And you mentioned it. It does get to be the Tim Tebow effect, the same thing as
Mm-hmm.
the Colin Kaepernick effect. At a
Mm-hmm.
certain point, I don't want my QB2 or QB3 to be getting all the media circus. I just don't need it, you know. So the question does get to be at a certain. Because you think, well, the talent's just so overwhelming at a certain point at round 5 or 6, you draft
Yeah.
him, but not if he's QB3 and he's getting all this negative attention every week. No, he may slide all the way out. You know, we'll stay tuned. There aren't usually this many good reasons to watch the Saturday of the draft, but this is a good one.
I can't imagine. I didn't see on Twitter today, but I can't imagine what the ESPN broadcast Mel Kiper was like today while Shedeur continued to fall. Because apparently that was all that he could talk about in the first round. I can't imagine. I'm watching NFL Network, man. I'm not doing ESPN broadcast anymore. Let's talk about a couple other guys that we had on our consensus board that are still out there. So Shedeur was 32nd on our consensus board. But there's wide receiver Alec Iomenor out of Stanford. He's the 36th overall player consensus. Now, he had a big toggle through mocks in the last few months.
Yeah.
So I'm not too surprised, but he's really high on our board. We all really liked him. Marcus Mbao, the guard out of Purdue, 70th on our consensus big board. He's still available day three. And then Jack Sawyer, Ohio State edge rusher, 59th consensus big board for us. He is still out there as well. What do you make of any, all, some of those three guys still being available?
Yeah, and I'll even add another name that I like is Jalen. You mentioned him before the show started. Jalen Royals from Utah State, the wide receiver, still sitting there. I thought he would be gone. The Marcus Bowe sitting there from Purdue is the one I really was surprised at the most out of that trio that you mentioned. Out of all the offensive linemen taken, and teams could use more of them, you know. And Bowe looked like a legit, you know. I thought he could be a second round pick myself, mid to late
Yep,
second
me
round. I would
too.
have been proud to take him there based on what I saw. And for him to just slide right out of the third round, it always makes you wonder: is there something going on that we just don't know about? But if there's not, I don't understand tape wise why he slid straight out of the third round.
Yeah, there was, especially when you stack them with the other offensive linemen that were taken. Like if you look over at the tackles, Charles Grant right at the end of the third round is fine. He's a developmental guy, but that's a tackle, right? But Emory Jones from LSU, Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech, those guys are going to be guards. But they were more of the mauler variety than Bo, so maybe that has something to do with it. But Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia, again, more of a mauler, so maybe just like a guard who's also just like the light, quick zone blocking scheme kind of guy. Maybe that just gets pushed down a little bit. But you go look at the guards, and the other guards that got drafted ahead of him, other than Fairchild, I had all ranked right around Bo or better than. Um, Jared Wilson, man, going to New England. That's a home run pick. Um, so yeah, he's one, and Sawyer is just like a little bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. So it's not too crazy. Again, 59th on our board. So like both those guys were, in the third round range for us. I like Iomenor though, man, and I know the drops are a thing, and that's probably a lot of it. Coaches see the drops on tape, and I'm sure a lot of teams just cross them off because of all of that. Um, but I think someone's getting a dude with Iomenor. So Fenton Dynasty owners use that late third round pick on Iomenor wherever he goes. Um, Anything else? Any other big? We'll mix in talking about some of the guys that were taken day two but fell a little further than we thought. But anybody else kind of in this vein that you want to talk about?
Cameron Williams, who also is a bit of a project himself, the
Hmm.
offensive tackle from Texas. I thought somewhere in the third round, again, just teams wanting these offensive linemen, I thought he would
Yeah.
go. Ultimately, there there weren't that many people that I was shocked just failed. More of the groups that we're going to talk about surprised me a little bit, but the individual players, there were maybe 3 to 5 of them that I was surprised. I think there were more players that slid from rounds 1 to 2 or rounds 2 to 3 that surprised me. There's not a ton here that I was very shocked are still sitting here for round 4 to be picked through.
Yeah, especially when you look back and they get picked in the first 10, 15 picks of round
Right,
four. Because to me,
right.
early round four, you're not that much different than a comp pick in round three, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's really once you get into like late, mid, fifth round kind of deal that those are the guys that you're expecting to like practice squad, try out type of players. Let's zoom out a little bit now. We'll talk about the one position group that seemed to get pushed down this year out of all of them, and that was corner. And a few weeks ago, Ben, you and I talked about we thought the corner position was pretty shallow. We liked the talent at the top, but we thought that would raise up all the corners. We thought some of these guys
Yeah.
that are maybe ranked in the 40s and 50s would get pushed up to early second round picks. Uh, I had guys that I had rated as first rounders or top 30 guys, top 40 guys get pushed down to the third round here. Guys like Savon Ravel, guys like Trey Amos. So what did you make of the corners getting pushed down here a little bit?
This was a big surprise for me. Another position group we're going to talk about was not necessarily a big surprise for me personally, but this one is. You basically got 9 cornerbacks, counting Travis Hunter, that I thought probably 7 or 8 of them would get, like you said, squeezed up by demand into the top 50 picks. And if you didn't get them by pick 50, 55, they were going to be gone. And all you have left would be a project or an injured guy.
Hmm.
Well, instead, that group of eight cornerbacks here, everybody from Hunter, Barron, Harrison, got stretched out. I mean, all the way through the entire third round here. Well, first 2.5 rounds, if you will. So Trey Amos fell in there, surprised
Yep.
me. Darian Porter, I thought again because of the demand, even though he's a project, I thought with that speed he would get pushed up to like pick 60. Savon Revel must be an injury, I think. I'm sure small school would keep him out of the first, but the injury thing's got to be hurting Revel there. And then Azariah Thomas, listen, I'm sure that 40 time, man, we've seen so many defensive backs go in the second round over the years who were slow. For Thomas to slip to the third round, there's got to be something else there, you know?
He goes to the Jets and Aaron Glenn, and that was the guy that I thought they
Yes,
would love in the second round. They get him with the third round
right.
pick instead. Um, and so a lot of these guys probably fell into better situations than they would have been, right?
Yeah,
Um, you look at some of those defenses and some of those coaches that those guys are going to. Benjamin Morrison uh, going about where I had him ranked, and I factor in the two hip injuries going back to high
right,
school with him. But he's
right.
going to a Buccaneers defense who needs cover guys, but he's going to a good defense. He's going to Todd Bowles. That's great. Trey Amos going to a Dan Quinn defense in Washington. Love that. Love Amos and Sanders still together. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
yeah,
Are
it's
you kidding me? I
fantastic.
just put that together, man. That is sick. I love that. Porter going to Pete Carroll. Give Pete Carroll a ball of
Right.
clay, a 6'3", 4 foot, 4.340 raw corner, and he's going to make that happen. Thomas going to the Jets and Aaron Glenn. Ravel going to the Cowboys, man. Just like the Cowboys just
Uh,
sit there and take good players in the draft every single year. They just mess everything up after that. Um, and the Revel thing is funny, especially because that's what 20 almost 15, 20 picks between him and Morrison. I thought Morrison's injury red flags were going to be way worse than Revel's. Revel had a ACL tear in September, so yeah, you wonder what's up with that. If it is just small school plus that, or if there's something else out there. But then we get 6 corners going in the mid, in the back half of the third round here, including guys that I had as clear like day three guys. So I think maybe once Revel got picked up, teams maybe I don't want to say panicked, but we're like, oh, we got to get in on this. Meanwhile, Quincy Riley's still out there, who I like out of Louisville.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, interesting because yeah, we definitely thought that group of corners would go in the top. I didn't have Porter quite that high because of the project nature of it, but I would have thought Darian Porter, let's say I love that fit with Vegas at the third round, fourth overall, or fourth in the third round. I would have thought Revel and Thomas also would have been gone at that point, and all those guys would have been much more constricted to the top 50 picks.
Yeah, and again, it's not like I expected or you expected them to just all go flying into the first round because we did. But boy, we figured there was such a, I'll use your word, there was such a chasm there, okay, between the top 6 or 7 guys to the next group that they were going to be gone by 50 or 60. And then I figured a lot of these guys would fall out of the top 100, but instead they're flying up in the 80s and 90s picks. So
I wonder how much of it is that Super Bowl. Just like pass rush, pass rush, defensive linemen, bodies up front, worry about the corners later. I wonder how much of it is related to that, or if it's just there's something little with each of these guys. We obviously Will Johnson. We talked about Will Johnson a lot last night, me and Austin, but a clear injury situation there pushes him down to the middle of the second round. Not only a current injury that people are worried about, but more of a debilitating long-term knee situation for him. Not sure how long his career is going to be, but he goes in the middle of the second to the Cardinals, who again I thought he would have been great for them in the middle of the first round. Um, but yeah, Morrison with his injuries, Thomas with his 40 time, Revel with his injury, um, Amos, I have no idea, but maybe just smaller corner. Maybe that's all it is. But let's talk about some of these other position groups who have had different trends throughout this draft, but groups that were lauded for their depth going into the draft. So talking about defensive tackle, best defensive tackle class we've ever seen. We've got these guys at the top, and then there's depth all the way through. Running back, we could have 12, 13 running backs in the top 100. There's a starting running back for every team in this
yeah,
draft. And
yep,
then a sneaky one that only got talked about lately, wide receiver. It's not a superstar wide receiver class by any means, but there's real depth there. And I thought there was some real, you look at defensive tackle right now, best available. There's still guys that we like there. Um, Running back, only 6 go here in the top 102. Plenty of names that we've heard about all process long are still out there. And then wide receiver, this one's more interesting because there was such a wide range on something like if you go to mock draft database or just any of the big boards, guys like Ty Felton and Kyle Williams are in the 130s of those for the most part. Kyle Williams goes
yep.
69 overall, nice, and Ty Felton goes 103 there or 102 to the Vikings. Um, but then you got Jack Besh who is flying up mocks, but a lot of people, including us at Box Score, have a lot lower, but he's going in the top 60s, going in the first 2 rounds there. So just wherever you want to take it, those 3 position groups, the depth of those groups versus each other, how you think it ended up impacting what happened here on night 2.
I'll stay with the wide receivers. The depth there is the key word. That's perfectly well put because again, people have kind of poo-pooed the wide receiver class for months now, and rightfully so. The superstars that we've seen on say maybe what 3 out of the past 4 drafts have not been is not there
Hmm.
this year. But boy, the depth is fantastic. Whatever you're looking for in this year's wide receiver class, if you're in the right picking spot, you could get it. If you want the kind of the all pro, I mean, the all professional wide receiver, that's Ibuka. If you need the high end ceiling guy, it's McMillan. If you're looking for the speed in the hands, it's Matthew Golden. If you're looking for a real man to play wide receiver, it's Jaden Higgins. If you want the kind of great tool in the box Swiss Army knife, it's Luther Burden. If you're looking at a guy who can go vertical with size, that's Trey Harris. I mean, you've got the kind of the horizontal receiver with Jack Besh who can still go deep as well. I mean, you've still got Kyle Williams who's fast. You've got Jalen Knowles floating around out of Iowa State. The sloppy but super surprising Savion Williams. They're all out there, man, and they are desirable players. Now, they weren't most of them first round desirable players, but boy, you can see teams wanted these guys throughout the first, all 3 rounds really. So they are desirable players. Each one of them is a little limited in some way, no
Hmm.
question about it. But teams wanted these guys.
Uh, I do feel like it's said every year at a certain point where it's like, okay, once you hit this number, it is just like pick your flavor. It's a free for all. It's scheme and coaching fit. It's personality fit. Like I think a pick like Besh is Pete Carroll coming in and we said this before the draft, like they've got a lot of like pieces in the wide receiver room, no like alpha and no like real. This is my X, this is my Z, this is my slash, just like a bunch of dudes. And this might have just been Pete Carroll being like, this is a guy I want in the wide receiver room. And he's similar to Jacoby Myers in terms of just like dirty work, can do a little bit of everything. Let's build it around these two and see what else might pop around that. Um, Green Bay has 7 receivers, so they were like, let's take another receiver who's also kind of a running back, who's also kind of a, I
Yeah,
don't know, Hellcat demon, in Savion Williams. Um, but there's still guys on the board. There's Iomanor, who we mentioned, Torrey Horton, we like, Jalen Royals, we like, Isaiah Bond, obviously everything off field with him, but he's still on the board. Tez Johnson, Xavier Restrepo are guys that are obviously well known for good college careers that are going to be out there day three. So yeah, there was just such a wide range on receiver, and maybe part of that's due to not having the real dudes at the top. You got Travis Hunter, whatever you want to call him. You got Ted
hmm
McMillan, who we like, and he went top 8, so pat ourselves on the back. Um, but then after that, it's just kind of like, yeah, Matthew Golden, like speedster, like snaps routes off, kind of a one, late round, late season wonder. Um, all the way down. Ibuka does a little bit of everything. Great guys taking overall on round 2 here. Um, the other one that I wanted to hit though was, yeah, you had some interesting thoughts on running back. So we only have 6 taken here. Um, Spread out a little bit. You've got your 4 early, which we expected, 4 kind of right there in that top. I think 40. They ended up going. Not until the end of the second round do we get another one with RJ Harvey out of UCF, and then late in the third, you've got Caleb Johnson from Iowa going to Pittsburgh. What do you think about the running backs?
yeah, it was really interesting. In full disclosure, I did not do a ton of work on these running backs. I just didn't. There were so many of them. I watched a lot of them throughout the year, and then maybe highlights of different ones. So I didn't do the work that a lot of the mock drafters did. But what a lot of them were telling us was, hey, there's probably 20 guys that could be drafted here, 25 guys with draft grades, and
Mhm.
it could even be 14, 15 of these guys in the top 100. They weren't actually predicting that all of those guys would go in the top 100 because they know better. But again, I wasn't expecting 6 to go in the top 100. That's not what I was expecting. Based on what we were hearing about how good these running backs were. What it actually came down to, you mentioned the 4. All right. So Jonte
Mhm.
was clearly the cream of the crop. He goes really high. Hampton, we were all fairly confident he would get in the first round somewhere, and he did. And then Judkins and Henderson, the Ohio State guys, who we actually, as a network, like Henderson better, but still, those were the 4. And then after that, pretty big drop off. But again, when you have that many running backs, not every team's even going to draft one at all.
Right.
When you've got 20 or 25, because you've been telling us this for years, don't draft running backs in the mid rounds, right? But especially in a year when you have this many legit
Yep.
guys, heck yeah, I'll wait to round 6 or 7 to get mine. I'm
Right.
just fine. So we did see that supply and demand. There's just too much supply here for the demand at running back.
Yes, yeah, I've been saying that for years, and then my team took a guy smack dab in the middle rounds there, right at the end of the third round. Love that. Um, Whatever, man. Whatever. Didn't reach on a quarterback, so it's fine. Um, yeah, and the thought with all the running backs was, hey, these guys could just all almost groupthink, right? Get pushed down because everyone's like, I'll just wait, I'll just wait, I'll just wait, and then you get a bunch of guys kind of still kind of waiting around. Um, Scadaboo was the guy that like was thought to be in this kind of like group of
Yeah.
6. Harvey was like almost on the outside looking in. It was very much Jaunty, then Hampton, Judkins, Henderson, and like a tier and a half, whatever people thought. And then a lot thought it was going to be Caleb Johnson, Scadaboo. I didn't love Scadaboo as much when I was watching him. RJ Harvey definitely seems more a Sean Payton running back as well. So I thought that made sense that he went and got him, even if it felt a little early. And then yeah, we'll just see where that crop of running backs. There's probably we before we got on, we rattled off 8, 10 names that we feel like could be drafted early in the fourth round and make impacts this year. So we'll see what happens there. Um, all right, that's enough of the conversation pieces. It's time to get to the real thing here. So we're gonna give you guys a little midterm grades on these draft grades. So again, I'm over the weekend going to have team by team, division by division grades on this channel. So make sure you check that out. Um, but Ben, before the final grades come out, before the official letter grades, we're going to give a little outstanding, satisfactory, needs improvement, right? Remember those again, those on your report card halfway through the year, halfway through the quarter, whatever it was. But ours is going to, instead of OSN, it's BSN, it's Box Score Network. So this is going to be a baller draft, a satisfactory draft, or a needs improvement draft through two nights. Ben, are you ready?
I am, and just so you know how I graded at a glance as I went through, and I'll try to conform all of that to the system you put up. I handed out 23 smiley faces, so I was happy. I gave out seven. What is that? The wavy line? I don't even remember.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is fine. And then I had two question marks. Okay, so two teams. I didn't hate anybody's draft. I really didn't because I could see everybody working,
Yeah.
and I did not hate anybody's draft at all. The worst I came to was, hey, I'm not sure why, but that's okay. You're all working, so that's where I'm at. But yeah, we're gonna go with your grading system here. We'll get on with it, man.
Well, it's funny because yeah, question mark and then needs improvement. It's like, hey, not only is
All right.
this not only like we always say, you can't really grade a draft until like 4 or 5 years down the road. This
Right.
draft isn't even over yet. Now, I
No.
certainly weight my grades based on your first couple picks, but we mentioned a lot of names that we like that are going to go in the fourth round. So that could seriously impact what's going on. Um, I like your grading system. Smiley face, squiggly line, question mark. That's great. And also same like I thought we were gonna maybe just do an easy winners or losers. But then as I went through it, I was like, we just have all winners. Like we maybe would each pick a loser and then we would have like eight winners each and then that would be the
Right.
whole show. So we're
Uh
we're
huh.
gonna we're gonna I'm also cheating a little bit. I'm gonna help myself get some grading done while I can. This is my planning period, we'll say, and I'm grading some papers or something. Shout out
Yes.
to any teachers that are watching this. And we're just going to go team by team based on the random order that we put them in our doc. So starting with the AFC East, the New England Patriots through these first 2 days have taken Will Campbell, Travion Henderson, Kyle Williams, and Jared Wilson. Ben, are you giving this a B, an S, or an N? A baller, a satisfactory, or needs improvement?
Yeah, get the baller here. All right, this
Absolutely.
was good. I didn't like their off season with the free agency period because man, they just went right after defense. But I was willing to wait and see what they did here at the draft, and they went offense on the draft, so that's fine. I think what made me smile the most was when they added Jared Wilson on the
Mm.
tail end. I cannot tell you how bad this offensive line is before this draft. I mean, you talk about just a joke of an offensive line, mostly with guys who shouldn't be on the field for the most part. It's a joke, but you got like one guy there on the offensive line, but now you've added Will Campbell, and now you've added Jared Wilson, and probably they'll both start right away. Campbell will for sure. I think Wilson will as well. But then you add in Travion Henderson, running back, who we all like, and then you add in Kyle Williams, two adults already kind of in there at wide receiver for the Buffalo. So yeah, I baller here.
Eyeballer as well. Yeah, I wonder if Jared Wilson, how much guard has he played? Because I know he wasn't a full-time starter at center until this year. I wonder because they brought in Garrett Bradbury from Minnesota. I wonder if they put Wilson at guard for a year, kind of like what Jackson Powers Johnson did coming out of Oregon last
Probably
year.
yes,
They let
yes,
Bradbury have a year to kind of help solidify that line as a veteran. Wilson plays guard next to him, and then Wilson becomes the team's franchise. I love Wilson. This is a baller draft. We talked about Will Campbell and why we love that fit plenty. We don't need to do that here tonight. Travion Henderson. I love Travion Henderson. Uh, they didn't get the receiver at that point at 38 that I thought they might. Maybe Jaden Higgins going at 34 is the reason why. But they still said, let's give Drake May an offensive weapon, something, and he's a pass catcher, so like something in the pass game. But then Kyle Williams in the third round really kind of sealed it. That's a baller first four picks for the Patriots. You mentioned they went free agency defense. I love seeing how teams do their team build. So Vrabel was like, I'm coaching this defense. I want to keep them good.
yeah,
Let's just spend money on veterans that can just walk in and keep this thing. But then we need talent on offense. So let's build the offense from the ground up with the young quarterback. I think that's a great move. Buffalo Bills. They take corner Maxwell Harrison. They take defensive tackle TJ Sanders. They take defensive end Landon Jackson. We're B, S, or N for the Bills.
Yeah, I went baller for them. It is difficult when you're the Bills to improve the roster. They're not hurting anywhere, but
Hmm.
Maxwell Harrison. We wondered, would they take a look at him? How would teams view him? Would he slip into that late first round? And he did, and I'm glad because Bills need a cover guy. Will he be a shutdown cover guy? I doubt it, but still, they needed a cover guy. He totally fits that. I was glad they did it, so I really liked that. And then they continued to just I hate to call it a pure youth movement because they're cycling through a little bit slow, but they are shedding age for
Yep.
two off seasons now on defense, shedding cap, and getting younger guys in here who look good. Even as recently as say 6 weeks ago, Jackson was being talked about as a higher draft pick than this. So to get T.J. Sanders, Landon Jackson there, I like it.
I'm going satisfactory. This is nice. This is a Buffalo
Okay.
Bills draft. I love Maxwell Harrison. Um, I felt like they needed a bigger splash in this draft than they're doing, but they're
Right.
drafting nice players, and that's what good teams
Right.
do. I like Sanders. I love Harrison. I'm a little lukewarm on Jackson, but you're getting him in the 70s, and he's a solid run defender,
Mm-hmm.
so solid overall for the Bills. Um, the New York Jets, they take Armand Membu, Mason Taylor, Ezra Thomas. BS or N?
This was I didn't put baller, although they got a smiley face for me. This is a no nonsense draft for them. They got football players and men. Okay,
Yep.
so I liked everything they did. Now, is it super high end talent that's just gonna be here for 10 years? I'm not sure about that with Taylor and Thomas, but still, I like these guys. This is a good draft for the Jets. I thought.
Did you end up giving that a B or an S?
Yeah, that's a satisfactory for me. It got a smiley face from my personal grades, and then satisfactory on with you.
Yeah, I'll probably give this satisfactory as well. To get Thomas, I mean, Thomas was kind of. I also have a team needs thing here. What's going on there? No, I'm gonna give this baller. I love Membu. I love Membu. I love Thomas getting him in the third round is great. Mason Taylor, guy, I'm slightly lower on the consensus, but a good player. At a position they needed, so he can have an impact right away and be a true pro. So I'm gonna go baller. I like what they're doing so far. Maybe that's just me giving Aaron Glenn some points for the news about Rodgers from last week, but whatever. The Miami Dolphins, Ben. The Miami Dolphins, baby. Kenneth Grant, first round. Trade up for Jonas Avaine in the second round, pick 37. What are you doing here?
Yeah, baller just for
It's
the Kenneth
baller.
Grant pick alone. I
Mm.
I love the seven they but the Kenneth Grant thing because I mentioned they got too many needs, right? And I really, 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 really hated to throw a rookie like Jedi Barron into this secondary.
Yep.
Just didn't seem like enough. So for them to add Kenneth Grant, the big guy, even if he never does get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, just to add him in along with Seiler and Chop Robinson, you're building the strength and you're showing that if you're Chris Greer and if you're Mike McDaniel there, you're showing that you are thinking about more than just throwing the football downfield and fast running backs. You're building a football team. So I like it.
They're finally learning their lessons. They're eating their vegetables. I was saying before the draft, they need foundational pieces, and they're getting that, and they're getting physical mauler dudes, winners, guys that are going to play in the wintertime. Um, this is baller. This is fantastic. This is the most weight I bet that they have drafted, even if you add the guys from like all three
All
days in
seven,
previous
yes,
drafts.
all
Now
seven
that
rounds.
it's not too hard because a lot of them it was like four picks, but even when they take 7 or 8 guys, I guarantee this is more weight than any of those. I love this. This is fantastic. Kenneth Grant, I love. Jonah, I love. So this is great. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers. Take Derek Carmen in the first round. Take Caleb Johnson in the third round. What are you doing here?
Satisfactory here. Harmon is a perfect Steeler guy, and Caleb Johnson I think fits the culture. Even though we probably didn't want running back there, I was satisfied.
Yeah, satisfactory here as well for me. They two positions that need two solid guys, good value for the rounds they got them. Um, don't love running back, but you give the extra point for the defensive line they needed, so satisfactory as well. Cincinnati Bengals go Shamar Stewart in the first, Demetrius Knight, linebacker in the second round, and then guard out of Georgia, Dylan Fairchild in the third round. How do you feel about this?
I was somewhere between baller and satisfactory. I probably ended up at satisfactory, but easily talking to the baller here. I like Shamar Stewart. I was hoping they would grab starts, but I knew they were going defensive linemen, so that's fine. I love Demetrius Knight, not as a high end guy, but just as a walk in day one starting linebacker. Although they're going to have to start three linebackers if they do that, but that's fine. They're building the defense here. The Dylan Fairchild pick is fine. I was really hoping they would get Winston or Riley on the back end of that defense there in the third round. So Winston, the safety out of Purdue, very athletic, and then Riley, of course, the cornerback out of Louisville. I really wanted them to just keep building on that defense. They didn't do it, so that's probably why I came in satisfactory here. But I like what they're doing here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go satisfactory as well. I like Shamar Stewart. He was higher on my board. I think there are better options to take on the offensive line, but I think they're also going for like a personality thing, right? I mentioned he's more of a mauler than some of those other guys in
Right.
Fairchild. They needed to attack defense. They did. They're starting up front. That's good. I'll go satisfactory just because I also, if it's going to be baller for me, like I got to love the players too. And I really like Shamar Stewart, but he is a project. So for the Bengals, who need to improve this defense right now,
Yeah.
is Shamar going to do that day one? Again, I really like Shamar. I think he's going to be a good player. Satisfactory for me with the Bengals. The Cleveland Browns, they've made a lot of picks. They've got 5 picks. They trade out of the Travis Hunter selection. They take Mason Graham. They take Schwessinger, the linebacker out of UCLA with the first pick of the second round. They take Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State. Harold Fannin Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green, and Dylan Gabriel, quarterback out of Oregon. What are you doing here for the Browns?
I went baller here, and
Wow.
trading out of Travis Hunter was not the most wonderful thing, but you've got a Browns team here that is trending old and trending expensive because of the Deshaun Watson debacle. Well, hopefully in another season, Watson is gone. In the meantime, they're replenishing the roster. So in theory, they don't rebuild a year from now when Watson's out the door. They just add a quarterback and they keep on trucking. So being able to trade back and still get a Mason Graham was fantastic. All right, that's just beautiful. That could be your 10-year guy right there.
Hmm.
Getting a Schlesinger in the second round to work off that edge. A lot of people liked him. I'm not sure they quite liked him that good, but they did like him. So I like that. Quinshon Judkins fills up the running back spot, adds to that. And then probably one of the reasons I'm also a little prejudiced here is I really did like Harold Fannin. I
Yeah.
just love him. He's a catching machine. So, the Dylan Gabriel pick I can do with it without. But those top 4 picks right there, I just see them replenishing the roster here. And while I love Travis Hunter, I don't know that they necessarily needed Hunter necessarily like some other teams really, really, really needed Hunter. So I baller for me.
You might be swaying me, Ben. I had this as needs improvement because you trade out of Travis Hunter, man, to take a defensive
Yeah,
tackle and a
it's tough.
linebacker and a running back. I mean, I get what you're saying. You make a lot of good points, and like 5 years from now, if you've built up the trenches a little bit, that might do you more justice than having Travis Hunter playing on a bad team. But man, you trade out of Travis Hunter. That's that's tough for me.
That's
I'm
tough.
gonna say needs improvement. I want to see what they do in the second in on day three. If they show up in the fourth round, take Alec Ihomenor, and I'm like, okay, they got a little juice on offense. If they get a Quincy Riley, I'm like, okay, there's the corner they're missing a little bit. Um, wow, B and an N. This is great. This is great stuff. Swear it's not the terrible towel in the background. Baltimore Ravens, Ben, are next up. Malachi Starks in the first round, Mike Green in the second round, Emory Jones in the third round. I mean, this one's pretty easy.
Yeah, listen, here's what I wrote for the Ravens. And sorry, give me 1 second. I'm gonna roll back over to wherever they are. Geez, where'd they go here? Ravens. Okay. Malachi Starks. Of course they did. Mike Green. Of course they did again. Emory Jones. Of course. They sat there and did nothing but pick the players that everybody else
Yeah.
didn't take, and I love them for it. I love
Refresh best
Malachi.
available. Take that guy. What?
I love Malachi Starks. I get it. People didn't want him top 20. That's obvious that they did not. Okay, maybe speed, maybe safety, whatever, but they didn't. That's fine. The Ravens are totally happy with getting him. I get why people maybe don't want Mike Green, somewhere between small school and the legal potential issues. Totally get it. But the Ravens are fine doing it. And then Emory Jones, who I view more as a guard than a tackle, but maybe he starts as a guard and in a year or two can move out in the tackle. But either way, the Ravens are happy to get him.
They got tackles. They need a guard. So I mean, that's great. Um, the Mike Green thing is hard. It's really hard to talk about and have all the right information and figure out. The Ravens are obviously dealing with similar issues with another player in terms of sexual misconduct and such as that. So that is all a part of this. We have no way to really figure out what's going on there on our end right now. So we just have to
Yeah.
look at the players. So that's what we're going to do. It's a baller class. I mean, even if it was just Malachi Starks, I wouldn't really care about the rest of it.
Right.
Um, baller for the Ravens. Let's go down to the Chargers here. Omarion Hampton in the first round, Trey Harris in the second round, Jamari Caldwell, defense tackle out of Oregon, in the third round. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I definitely satisfactory at least, but I think baller. I was surprised. They surprised me that they went offense. I figured they would go defense somewhere
Yep.
here heavy, but no. Listen, you add Omarion Hampton, you add Trey Harris, who I liked. Man,
Mhm.
not a lot of people did, but I like Trey Harris, and so that gives you that bigger receiver, but who's also a vertical threat. He's not the fastest guy, but still he's
Mhm.
a vertical threat. And then you add in the defensive tackle. I say the defensive tackle, a defensive tackle that I've been telling them to get for 2 or 3 years now. So I probably baller here because of the Chargers and because Herbert gets more things to work with.
Yeah, the Dolphins learned that they needed to beef up, and the Chargers learned that they needed to juice up. Whereas, like, okay, we did the trenches last year. We got the tackle, we got the linebacker, yada yada yada. Let's get a home run running back, and let's get a big play wide receiver. I'm one of those guys that was like slightly lower on Trey Harris, but you put him with Herbert, McConkey, Hampton, and this offensive line, and now all the pieces are fitting together, right? So I like that. I'm going, and it was probably satisfactory for me. And then Caldwell is like just a plugger, just like sit the dude in the middle and let him two gap and stop the run, and that's what they need. So that elevated to baller. The Broncos. Jai Barron in the first round, RJ Harvey in the second, Pat Bryant, the wide receiver in the third, and Savion Jones, edge rusher at 101. What are you giving them?
I came in at satisfactory. No, I love the Jade Barron pick and the first round. I love that. I did not expect that. Everybody and their brother, including me, was just kind of going offense for the Broncos because it just seemed to be an easy fit. And we all recognized that they could go in a different direction. But I love Barron to the Broncos. I think that's beautiful. I think he will play very well there. He doesn't have to carry the burden there. I would assume he's a whole heck of a lot happier going there than he is going to the Dolphins. I mean, I think that is beautiful. So that alone is enough to give it a baller, grade. But I give it satisfactory. The RJ Harvey pick is fine. They got a running back. That's fine. I'm happy with that. The Pat Bryant pick is fine. The other wide receivers I like better, but I have respect for Pat Bryant coming out of Illinois as well. So, and then the Savion Jones pick. It didn't blow me away after the first round, but, I was very happy with I trust them too with what they're doing.
Fannin was the last tight end taken. He went 67 overall, right? And then when they took their wide receiver, it was at pick 74, 78, 74.
Sounds right.
Um,
74. Yeah.
because I thought they might go tight end at some point, try to get one of those guys, but they all got pushed up once Ferguson went at
Yeah.
46 or whatever. We'll talk about that. Then everybody was like, "Oh, go get Fannin, go get Arroyo. Can't wait on the tight end anymore." Because I know Pat Bryant maybe turned some heads as the pick, but they probably, anyways, they needed a pass catcher. This is satisfactory for me as well. Jedi Barron, great pick, going to be awesome for them. And then they got guys that Sean Payton, RJ Harvey, I said was probably a Payton guy for what he can do. So I'm going satisfactory here as well. The Raiders. Ashton Genty at 6, Jack Besh at 58, Darian Porter in the third round we mentioned, and then back-to-back offensive linemen at the end of the third round, right? One after another. Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant. What do you got here for the Raiders?
I came in at baller, and listen, the thing I like best is I see a direction, not only just with the draft, but with everything they've done through this off season. Maybe all they ever do is make the playoffs once or twice under Pete Carroll, and that's it. He retires, and that's it. But listen, it feels responsible in here. It feels like they have a direction. It feels like they are building, And so for them to get Ashton Genty, contrary to the reports that came out this week that they were not going to take Genty, they turned out to take Genty. But then you add in Jack Besh, who helps their receiving group. Again, where does he fit? Maybe a question, but still, I like the pick. Maybe they could have got some other receivers. That's fine. But adding Darian Porter in there, who's a project, but you mentioned Carroll can mold that clay. And then working on the offensive line. So listen, you could quibble over maybe they could have taken a couple of different players, but I love the group they've got. I love that they are attacking this offense, trying to get it up to stuff here, woefully behind. So they're getting it up to par. So they can compete now. They can't fix all their holes in one off season,
Right.
but for them to have a direction is what I really like best.
Absolutely. All right. The Chiefs. They take Josh Simmons in the first round, Omar Norman Lott in the second, and then third round picks Ashton Gelati and Noel Williams. How do you feel about the Chiefs?
Yeah, I was satisfied. Again, kind of like the Bills, you're looking for a splash, and I guess you could argue that Josh Simmons is a splash, but
Hmm.
really, good roster. You add in defensive tackle, you're adding edge. It's all good. The Josh Simmons pick is the best. They needed a tackle, so yeah, I love the Simmons pick.
Satisfactory for me as well. All nice players, all players I like. Noel Williams is fun. He's just a feisty, like mad dog corner who his talent probably doesn't match it, but then he goes to the Chiefs who are great at developing corner. So like maybe something's gonna happen there. I like this draft so far for the Chiefs. We'll see if they get a pass catcher or an offensive weapon um, on day three, but this is satisfactory for now. The Colts, Tyler Warren in the first, JT Tuimoloau in the second, and then Justin Whaley in the third. How do you feel about the Colts?
I gave him baller. So basically, they went and got the offensive help for AR-15 in the first round. Then they went right back to working on that defense, which, again, hand in glove, they were already doing during the offseason, working on that defense. So I like that. The JTT pick, I like that. Just kind of adding him to the players that we already like in their front seven. And then the Justin Whaley pick, adding that to the two free agents they added in the secondary. So I like that. But then you go back to the Tyler Warren thing. I'm sure some people, and maybe rightfully so, would prefer Colston Loveland. But AR-15 now can have a guy with Warren who you just get him the ball in space instead of having to be accurate with
Mm-hmm.
Loveland. You get him
Yep.
the ball in space, and then he does the work. So I
Yep.
like that too, along with other good receivers that the Colts have. So
Yeah, I'm going baller as well. I love Warren. I love JT. Um, they did a good job covering in free agency. Didn't have too many like actual holes, but I thought tight end and edge rusher were the two big ones. So, and those are two players I really like. Jaguars.
I went baller.
The baller. I mean, come on, man. Like, what are we doing here? Their biggest needs were corner and wide receiver, and they did that in one pick.
Yeah.
Um, Never mind getting my guy Wyatt Milam, who I quite enjoy, and he can. I think he could play a couple positions on the line, so we'll see where he ends up slotting in this year. But yeah, Travis Hunter, man, you went and got him. I love that. It's a baller move by a 34-year-old to walk in and say, we'll just say put it all on the table and go trade up for Travis Hunter. Um, go go Jags. I got nothing else to say. Anyways, Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward, Olafemi Oladejo, the edge rusher out of UCLA, and Kevin Winston Jr. How do you feel about the Titans draft so far?
Okay, so I'm mixed. I'll give them satisfactory here. I like that they got Cam Ward. That was kind of a have to. And I like Oladejo and I like Winston. I legit like both of those players, and they need both of those players. Both of those players will help. My question was, does Cam Ward still not need more help? And I mean, anywhere from offensive line to people to throw to. It's not that they don't have anybody to throw to because they do. It's not that they don't have people to run the football with because they do. It's not that the offensive line is as bad as the Patriots was, say, before they added Morgan Moses in the draft picks and all that. It's not. But still, I kind of wonder maybe you take one of those defensive picks and put it back into the offense to help Cam out a little bit more since we all like Cam, but we don't think he's necessarily franchise savior material. I just like to give him more of a runway here for his rookie season because I figure he's going to play right away. Is what I'm thinking about Cam.
Yeah, I feel like they need another offensive piece. So, and they could still definitely get that. Did they trade when they made that trade? Did they trade that 101 or they have a pick in the hundreds, like early 100s, I think. No, I think they still have it. So I think they'll pick again early here in the fourth round. We mentioned several wide receivers that we like. I like the tight end Gunnar Helm as well. So if they go with one of those pass catchers, I'll feel really good about it because I also like those two defenders, and the Cam Ward pick is right. But
Yeah, yeah.
satisfactory for now for me as well. They need to get an offensive piece for Cam Ward. The Texans. Let's wrap up the AFC. This is awesome, man. Jaden Higgins, wide receiver. They traded down to the Ram from the Rams to the Rams, whatever. 34. Oh, the Giants pick. Jaden Higgins, Ariante Ursary, Jalen Noel, Jalen Smith. They get two receivers, they get a tackle who could play guard, and then they get another DB. How do you feel about the Texans?
They had me scratching my head when they made the trade back because I was like, dang it, you got your offensive lineman sitting there. What you doing? But then they made me smile. All right. So I what I wrote literally in my notes, I think this is my favorite stack out of the entire draft so far. The wide receiver, offensive tackle, wide receiver stack. So I love Jaden Higgins, who's the big physical wide receiver with some speed.
Hmm.
Not blazing, but some speed. Love that. Ariante Ursary, who gives you that tackle guard, whatever, but let's improve the offensive line because it's suffering a little bit. And then you went right back and you got the Iowa State teammate, Jalen Noel, who's more of the
So
speed
crazy.
guy. I mean, what's not to love? It's an ice cream sandwich, baby. I was thrilled with this, let alone the Jalen Smith pick you can throw in there. So I was all baller here for Houston. They really made me smile.
Yep, baller here from his well. Green Bay Packers. Let's get into the NFC here. Matthew Golden, Anthony Belton, offensive lineman, Savion Williams, wide receiver, running back, H back, whatever you want to call him. How do you feel about the Packers?
Uh, question mark. So I guess I give that an incomplete. All right. Here's what I wrote. They do not think like I do, but they're a solid organization, so I trust them. Not sure why the Packers saw the draft this way. I'm not criticizing them. Long live LaFleur. All right. I mean, he's the guy. Okay, and they have a good front office there. But you grab two receivers, and again, I don't mean to be insulting because I do have Golden and Savion Williams rated lower on my receiver board than others. But even so, had they drafted two wide receivers I like that were my favorites, I still would have questioned it because boy, entering the draft, I kind of thought edge rusher, defensive tackle. I literally in one of my early mocks had the defensive coordinator going and saying, hey, edge rusher, defensive tackle, cornerback, 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 cornerback. Those were the three for me. And I wouldn't have minded an offensive lineman as well, but they decided to give Jordan Love a whole lot more help here.
Yeah, the golden one, you could say, okay, like he's probably just too high on the board. He's
Yeah,
a bit of explosion that they're missing.
right.
Then yeah, doubling down with Savion Williams there was interesting. Now I'm looking at the defensive players that were taken after Savion, and it's nothing that really gets me going. I'm like, man, they should have taken this guy. Now we could talk about the guys we talked. Jack Sawyer is out there. Quincy Riley is out there. There's other good players. Um, Xavier Watts, if you just throw another safety back there with that, like do something to this defense that needs it. Oh, good Lord, you're paying Jordan Love all the money so he can make receivers better. How many receivers does he need?
Yeah.
But maybe it was just a situation where Savion was just too high on their board. A lot of defenders were gone. They kind of felt boxed in by doing the right thing, taking best player available. But yeah, this is needs improvement. There needs to be some defense added to this roster. And I know they, did that a little bit in free agency with Nate Hobbs, the corner from the Raiders. But they needed something. They needed something, and maybe they get someone here early in the fourth.
Let's give him Golden, who a lot of people like, and that's totally fine. But even so, at 54, I don't take Belton. I take a defensive player who I really like. And at 87 is where I take another offensive lineman because, especially at interior offensive lineman, we thought it was a whole lot deeper. So I just didn't like the stack. But again, I trust them as an organization, so they'll be fine.
The Detroit Lions, Tyler Williams in the first round, Tate Ratledge in the second round. That was one of my favorite mock predictions that I kept doing. And then Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver in the third round. How do you feel about this?
I gave it satisfactory. Obviously, they are not worried about getting to the quarterback any more than they already are. So everybody in the world, including myself, had them catching an edge somewhere. They didn't bother with that. They went with a run stopper, Tyler Williams, who can get the quarterback some. But listen, I'm totally fine with it. Strengthening that defensive tackle lineup was totally fine. Tyler Williams will play a lot. Strengthening the offensive line with Tate Ratledge, like that. So they'll be fine. I just was surprised they didn't go after an edger in there.
Satisfactory. Again, like you can hit your needs, get good players, but unless I'm like really in love with the players or really in love with the plan, um, that's what baller is for me. And so run stuffer. They needed it. Tyler Williams, really maybe the best run stuffer in this entire draft. Cool. Tate Radledge, really good guard. He might be their starting guard this year. Tesla, I don't know a whole lot about, to be completely honest with you. I'm going satisfactory as well. Like this is fine. And this is what these, again, good teams are kind of boring in the draft, right? They're just like, yeah, that's a good player. Okay, cool, move on. You're
Right.
picking at the bottom of every round anyways. The other small thing, the other petty thing I'm doing here is the Lions are responsible for a lot of the stupid trades that I hate once we get into day two. I trade my three picks for your three picks. I'm gonna add a pick next year so you can give me a 2 round difference pick this. I don't like it. Get it out of here. It's messy. I get why they do it. It actually is very smart. It makes a lot of sense, but it confuses me. So I don't like it. The Minnesota Vikings, 2 picks here. Donovan Jackson in the first round. Ty Felton to wrap up day three, or to wrap up day two, sorry. The wide receiver out of Maryland, that is. How do you feel about this?
It's satisfactory, but to be clear, I love the Donovan Jackson pick. I mean, I absolutely love it for them to plug him in here in the middle of that offensive line. I like his abilities. I like that he will be with them for a very long time. So I love that. That probably why I only give it satisfactory is you're only looking at 2 picks, and the Ty Felton pick didn't exactly move the needle for me, but you're not going to move the needle at pick 102, right? So, but no, I love Donovan Jackson here.
Love Donovan Jackson. I also really like Ty Felton. I had him up in the 70s of my board. I think he can be a really good player.
Yeah.
Um, and they already got 2 great wide receivers, so they're improving the run game with the guard, and they're improving the pass game with Felton. I would have, they need a DB. They probably need to add another guy into the mix, but Brian Flores is gonna, get whoever he needs and move him around. So I'm okay that they didn't go with a specific guy there. They got good value for only having the picks that they came into this draft with. The Bears. Colson Loveland in the first, Luther Burden and Ozzie Trapillo in the second, and Shamar Turner also in the second. How do you feel about this one?
Baller. Colston Loveland, surprised, but I like this fit. Not surprised that he went this high, but surprised that the Bears took him versus maybe some other things they could have done. Ben Johnson collected weapons to go along with the offensive line work they already did there in the offseason. The Bears make me smile, whether it works or not. I can see a direction. So listen, I loved all of this. When they got Colston Loveland and they got Luther Burden, you talk about you can see them adding all kinds of things to do, and Ben Johnson is adding the weapons to go along with the offensive line he already built. And then you got Ozzie Trapillo sitting there to continue to add to that offensive line. I love it. I just absolutely love it. The Bears haven't really made me this happy in quite a while, so I was very, very happy with this.
See, I put needs improvement. I don't love these guys in these places. Now, you make a good case for like the vision, right? And this is kind of what Austin was almost convincing me of last night as well with talking about the Loveland pick, where it's, hey, Johnson has a plan in his mind for schematically what this thing is going to
Yeah.
look like. And to execute that, he's looking for players that can do this and that and this and that. And he's going and he's grabbing those players. But I just look at my board and I look at the players and I look at what I think, the needs are. And, maybe this is a little big-headed, right? To be like, they didn't need a tight end in the first round. What are you doing, Ben Johnson? You don't know what you're talking about. Um, I just don't love the players. I'm here and I'm like, go anything, anything. So, and I also just don't love Shamar Turner. But we talked about that. Maybe the games I'm watching, he had some injury. Apparently, they were talking about on the broadcast during this past season. But in terms of when I'm thinking they needed an edge rusher, they need something on the defensive line, and I see a guy I had kind of on day three, and they get him right there at the end of round two. I just didn't. I don't like that. I don't love the players specifically. The plan maybe is not so bad. Don't love the players.
I will say you could talk me easily into getting a different offensive lineman other than Trapillo. Totally fine. And full disclosure, I was lower on Loveland than almost anybody else in the country. I've got him sitting around, I don't know, 32, 33 on my big board with Harold Fannin right there. So, but still, I love the vision here because Ben Johnson is putting together an offense and, he saw Trapillo and thought that fit. And then Loveland and Burden, I love the vision, yes.
Yeah, this could be when the Bears. Remember when you, me, and Ronan were on the stat sheet, and the Bears took everyone. They did the Jameer Gibbs thing, the branch thing, and the who's their tight end? Jesus, um, Austin just Compton, Lions tight end. Anyways, you guys can yell at me in the comments. Uh, and I was like, I don't like this. This is positional value and yeah, all that dumb stuff I was saying 2 years ago. Um, and it's not about position this time. It's just I just don't like the players that much. So we'll see. We'll see. Just needs improvement. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll all be great. They probably will be. The LA Rams, 2 picks. They trade out of the first round. Don't pick again until 46. They take Terrence Ferguson. Maybe I should have done these in reverse order because I would have been like, oh man, Colson Loveland at 10. So good compared to Terrace Ferguson at 46. Terrace Ferguson in the second round, Josiah Stewart, the edge rusher out of Michigan in the third round. What do you think about the Rams?
I don't know what to think about the Rams. I don't even, I'm taking back my grade. I'm not giving them any grade here at all. I refuse to give them a grade, okay? Not even incomplete. So on the one hand, you've got typical Rams, right? They're right back to, we thought they were all normal again. No, they're right back to F them picks. We don't need them. All right. We do not need them. We literally don't even need them. Okay. We don't need them so bad. We'll trade out of the first round. We'll add in a tight end that most people had back at, pick 60, 70. And then we'll throw in a guy, another defensive lineman here. Hey, I don't know what to do with the Rams. But I will say, maybe, just maybe, because again, they're fine. They're a good organization. They win. They'll be fine. Maybe, just maybe, collecting that first round pick for next year has them maneuvering a little bit for life without Matthew Stafford as they maybe look ahead to next year's crop of quarterbacks who are bigger and have bigger arms than this year's group did. So if that's the case, then I'm all on board.
See, I could be real hypocritical and just be like, I think McVay's gonna make Ferguson work. I think it's fine. But like, I really didn't like Ferguson. I think they should have gotten him at 90 instead of. Remember when McVay thought that they could get Colton
Yes.
Strange in the third on day three or whatever? Colton Strange, that's not his name. Anyways, um, that's what I feel here. I'm like, you could have gotten him at 90, and I wasn't a big Josiah Stewart fan from what I was watching on him. So, uh, sure, like you got two more players, and I'm not sure I can't even feel like I could say needs improvement because I'm like, what would you do? And that was part of them trading down, which was good. So maybe I should just grade the fact that they traded down and say good job by you. Um, because I said that I tweeted this today, whereas, they were a great trade back in it because I just didn't know what I would do with them, right? I didn't know because we wanted to keep mocking a corner, but we knew they weren't going to do that. Like it wasn't really, at some point you just got to be like, it's not in the card. So I need to stop pretending. So what was it going to be? What was it going to be? And if Colson Loveland and Ty Warren went in the first 14 picks, well, they weren't going to sit there at 26 and take Fannin or Taylor or one of those tight ends. So but yeah, Ferguson at 46 interesting. I'll say needs improvement just because I want to at least be consistent with the Bears, but I don't know what I'm gonna get out of them at this point. All right, the Cardinals. Let's get back on track here a little bit. Walter Nolan first round, Will Johnson second round, Jordan Birch third round. How do you feel about this?
I was a little split. Ultimately, I went baller here. I love the Walter Nolan pick. I didn't do it this offseason, but the past 2 or 3 years, I've been banging on the Cardinals to get a real beautiful defensive tackle, not just a decent defensive tackle. They did that. I love it. Catching Will Johnson. Listen, it's a legit concern that Will Johnson, somewhere between a knee, a toe, and a hamstring, just can't show teams what he can do, and maybe he never will. I get that, but still, to catch him down here at 47, I like Jordan Birch. I didn't love Birch. I like Birch. You could argue that they should have gotten a wide receiver right there, and that would have been fine. I'm totally bored with that, but I see direction here. They feel like they've got a competent offense over there, even though I think it could, maybe a little inconsistent, competent, but they're going right at this defense, man. And so I like that. I give them baller.
I gave him baller as well because I love these players. I love Walter Nolan. I love Will Johnson. Both guys are in my top
Yeah.
18, and they got him in the first 47 picks. I really like Jordan Birch. When we get down to that round three defensive lineman
Yeah.
group, like he's my favorite out of those guys. Great size, but I think he could be a 4-3 end, but I think he could play and rush from the interior as well. You now look at a really interesting defensive line group that they have with Nolan and Birch and Robinson from last year, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson. Like they've got a really fun group there. And let's say the Will Johnson thing, right? He slides because it doesn't look like there's long-term viability. Well, dude, let's say you get four like kick butt years out of this guy, and then a knee injury happens and it, whatever. That could happen to anybody. That could happen to literally any player. Um, that's what they've been saying about L'Jarius Sneed's knees for 3 years, and he just got a huge contract. So
Yeah.
if Will Johnson is even as good of a player as we think he is for
Mm-hmm.
3 seasons, got a darn good player, man. And that's what you're getting that in the second round, middle of the second round. That's a success. So a baller here for me as well. Seattle Seahawks. Gray Zabel, they move up and take Eamon Warrior, the safety out of South Carolina, Elijah Arroyo, the tight end, and then Jalen Milroe at 92. How do you feel about this for Seattle?
Baller. They could have stopped at the Gray Zabel pick. I literally did what I said I would do when I was watching the draft on Thursday night. I stood up and applauded when Seattle did what I wanted them to do, and I thought they never would, and drafted. I'm sure they talked Snyder into the idea that he's a tackle, not an
Right.
interior offensive lineman, like you said. I loved it. But then they added on Nicky Manwari, who legitimately should not have been drafted first round in most drafts, but the talent, the athleticism is there. It's great on the back end of this kind of younger defense that they're putting together here with McDonald, who knows what to do with these guys. So I
Hmm.
love that. But then you went back in and you added a tight end, Elijah Arroyo, who I, while I'm not in love with, I really like him. I like what he can put out there for Sam Darnold. And then you sneak back in and pick 92 and you grab Jalen Milroe, just kind of a low profile, give us a chance at quarterback, no threat to Sam Darnold right away. Baller for me.
Yeah, Love's able pick. Warrior's great because they have so much of that defense already built that you just put him in there to pepper him around, do a couple
Right,
different things, but never don't need him to do any one
right.
thing, which is perfect for him. Arroyo is
Yes.
fun. I really like him. And then with Milrow, you have this like quarterback situation where you're on like a payment plan or layaway or something, and they're on a sliding scale, ships passing in the night. Okay, Darnold, we could keep for all 3 years. We could keep for 1 year. And then we could do anything in between based on his contract. Milrow, he has an elite trait right now, but he's going to take a couple years to develop. So we have okay. Let's check back in after a year. How was Darnold? Is he worth that money for a year or two? How's Milrow's development? Is he ready to go in year two? If yes, if no, check box here, right? Sort of situation. And then Darnold, after year two, is he worth whatever money for year three? Milrow, after 2 years of development, is he ready to go? Yes, no, whatever. And then you do it for 30. It's a really interesting, it might blow up in their face because maybe Darnold is terrible and Milrow hasn't had enough time to develop or just won't develop. So maybe they don't have a quarterback in a year. Maybe after 2 years, maybe after three. But it's a really interesting way to go about the position. So I'm more just interested to see it. So I'm going baller here as well. And I also like Milrow. I kept telling you when we kept talking quarterbacks, like I know there's work to be done, but I just like the way the dude plays, man. I just like the way that dude will run through a wall, literally,
Yeah.
and he can sling it, man. He can make so I yeah. There's work to be done, but I like Milrow and getting him down at 92 is nice. San Francisco 49ers. Michael Williams in the first, Alfred Collins in the second, Nick Martin in the third, Upton Stout also in the third. What do you think about this one?
I would give them an incomplete, but nothing they do in this draft is going to change, here. So I gave them satisfactory. Okay. I like all the players they got. I want to be clear about that. These players are fine. But in almost every pick, I probably would have picked somebody else. As a matter of fact, I think I know I would have picked somebody else. So the 49ers just think different than I do. I love their coach Shanahan. I love the way he X's and O's. I think he is amazing at it. I think he will win Super Bowls if he ever, but they draft different. They just think different than me, and that's totally fine. I trust them to do it. But this is not what I would have done. But hey, they did go defense, defense, defense. So I like that. I'm satisfied. They're working on the defense. They'll be fine.
I do think they need to spread the love to the offensive line a little bit or just to another weapon if guys are going to keep getting banged up and hurt. I like the fact that they won a bunch of defense. I don't love the players and I haven't watched enough Nick Martin or Upton Stout to say how, one way or another, but I just think Alfred Collins is kind of just like a bit of a plugger. I don't,
Right.
and maybe that's not that bad at 43, but I think a lot of his a lot of his value that I see out there on boards is baked into like a little bit of juice, and that's just not what he is. I think he plays too tall. Like when you're a run stuffer, I
Mm-hmm.
want you low with leverage because I think small guys can get up in him and push him around a little bit. So if you're not going to give me pass rush juice, but you're also going to lose leverage in the run game too easily, he's that 6'4", 6'5", 310, 315 body type, so he's not like super wide. And again, he's really tall. It I don't know. I don't love Alfred Collins, but I do really like Michael Williams. I thought that was a good pick, but this needs improvement for me. Give me someone I know is going to be really good at something. Like the Nick Martin thing was like he's 220 pounds, but he runs and hits, and I'm like, are we sure that's going to work in the NFL at 220 pounds? I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see. Um, Give me a little bit on offense. You've got like 18 more picks or something. So show me something. All right. Let's get down to the last two divisions here, Ben. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Emeka Ibuka, Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish, rounds one, two, three. What do you think about this?
I'm satisfied. If Ben Morrison turns out to be healthy
Yeah.
and turns into what we thought he was, then I'm in love with it. Okay, I probably would have gone a different direction, a different stack. And to be clear, I really like Ibuka. He belonged in the first round. And if their thinking is we've got a super potent offense now and a succession plan for when our receivers age out, then that's totally fine. I like it. But honestly, for me, first round, I probably would have gone Starks or Barron or even Campbell, Jahad Campbell. I just thought any of those guys could have fit next year better on the defensive side of the football. And then I thought there were guys that they could have gotten at receiver, but later. So if we're looking stacks, I probably would have stacked it different. But Ibuka's a succession plan, makes the offense even better than it was. Totally like it. And boy, if Benjamin Morrison pans out, and then they got Parrish back there too. So they did address the secondary. I'm totally satisfied.
Yeah, the stack thing is interesting. That's why we want to do this. We did a lot of work on stacking players up throughout this process.
Yeah.
So to put some names to that, so you got Emeka Ibuka in the first round, Benjamin Morris in the second round. Yeah, can I interest you in Jedi Barron in the first round instead? And then you go get, let's see, who would have been past that? Trey Harris or Kyle Williams, even Kyle Williams. And like that might be six and a half a dozen. Like that's not
Right.
too bad. So yeah, satisfactory for me as well. Because I'm a little worried about the Morrison injury. I do really like Ibuka, but he's not blowing the top off of anything. Parrish, good outside corner in college, like projects to be a pretty decent nickel, and that was what they needed. They needed guys in coverage to help that defense. So they did it. I can't fault them for it. I might have found players I liked a little bit more, especially since they could have gotten Savon Roval at 84 there, but that's okay. Carolina Panthers, Tet McMillan in the first, and then they trade down and they get Nick Scorton at 51 and Princely Uman Milan at 77. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, ultimately baller here. So they did a similar to what the Colts did. They got an offensive kind of
Mm-hmm.
fireworks guy to help their young quarterback, and then they went right back to working on the defense. Now, granted, their defense is way behind where the Colts defense is. I'm not suggesting anything different than that, but you get Nick Scourton, who I could still have seen him even drafted higher, even though I
Mm-hmm.
realized why he wasn't. I thought that was a legit defensive help. And then Uman Milan, I know why he was drafted where he was, but still, this was a guy that some people even liked higher a few weeks ago, and I understand why he slid. But you add two solid defensive linemen there to go along with the offensive fireworks, so I liked it.
Yeah, baller for me as well. I love Tet. I really like Scorton. I really like Uman Milan. It's funny getting both those guys because Scorton is kind of the like maybe low ceiling but high floor, and Uma Milan's
Right.
kind of the opposite. So I like taking swings on that. And they're both versatile. Like Uma Milan, like looks like in the on paper, it's like wiry outside linebacker, but really tall, so you don't know what to do with. But then you look at him and he's thick and he can play the run. And Scorton, it's like this guy was 280 pounds, but also he's played at 260, so he could move a little bit better than he was doing last year. Um, but he can like rush from the inside, but he can stand up and play on the outside too. So like just two versatile, interesting edge rushers. And yeah, they one splashy edge rusher at 8 wouldn't have done anything. But getting both of these guys here on day 2 after Tet McMillan in the first round, I really like. So baller for me there. New Orleans Saints, Kelvin Banks in the first, Tyler Shuck in the second round, Vernon Broughton, defense tackle from Texas, and Jonas Shaker, safety from UVA, I believe, Virginia. Those are the third round picks. What do you got there?
On my personal grading scale, it got a question mark, and on your grading scale, it gets needs improvement. Let me clarify something first. I love Kelvin Banks. He will be great for them. He will help them. That's there's nothing wrong with that pick by itself. And Tyler Shuck gives them a chance at quarterback in the future. But dang it, man. How many how many years are we going to keep drafting offensive line here with the Saints, right? There are other positions, right? And they just keep hammering that one.
Keep doing it.
They're almost like the people you see who do nothing but eat vegetables and vitamins and they still look sick. All right. The Saints are eating their vegetables. That's not the problem, man. They draft trenches every friggin' year and they still look a little sick, right? So
Eat a
again,
cookie, New Orleans.
yes,
Go get a beignet down the street. What are you doing?
red meat, okay? Red meat is okay. All right. And then, when you draft Tyler Shuck here, I know they see something, right? And that's fine.
Yep.
But boy, it's just underwhelming. That's really where I was with it. And then Vernon Broughton, man, I didn't have him anywhere near pick 71. I
Mm.
would have gone other directions there. Sanker at 93, I like. I don't hate any of these players. They'll all be fine. They'll perform. But, I would have gone a whole million different directions than what the Saints did. So, needed improvement for me.
I'm satisfied. I mean, maybe I'm slightly underwhelmed, but I'm also satisfied. I love Banks. Last night I said put him at left tackle. You put Fuaga back on the right side. You make Penning work at a guard if he's going to work out. But then I was hearing on a pod this morning that Banks might just play left guard instead, and they keep Penning and Fuaga
Right.
where they were last year. And I don't
Right.
think there's harm in that. I don't think any of Penning probably had his best year last year, so like you really don't want to mess that up. And Fuaga, I think, played above the line in his first year at playing left tackle. So maybe yeah, you don't mess that up. You just put Banks at guard and let him rock it. I think he'd be a really good guard. So I think that's good. Chuck, I maybe I just kind of resigned myself to the fact that he was going to go at 40. I think I had him in the 50s in my big board. So I'm like quarterback bump, and the Saints. It was clear. I said this earlier. It was clear that the Saints were in on him or Dart. Like that was the style they wanted. Um, and I had this issue. It was funny. I made fun of Peyton 2 weeks ago when he was on the show about this because he gave an award to the Saints that was basically just like "Don't mess it up" award. And I was like, "Well, what do they do?" And he was like, "Yeah, I don't really know." And he was like, "Yeah, well, that's the Saints. Like, we don't really know. We talked about them for like 10 minutes, and then we were just like, yeah, we don't really know what to do." So maybe that's why I'm sad. Like, I don't know what I expected. You know, so great. You took Kelvin Banks on the offensive line and keep drafting offensive line. That's the answer, Ben. When are
Right.
we going to stop doing?
Yeah,
Don't ever stop. Don't ever
it'll be
stop.
fun. See, and I tell
Um,
you what's different for me because again, we've watched the Eagles and Lions go offensive line, but they've gotten good on the O line. The Saints haven't, so it's like, well, how long are you going to keep banging on this same door
that's funny.
until you get it fixed? Ignore all these other positions. Not that you suck everywhere else, but you're not strong anywhere else either.
The
So
the one note is they need a receiver. They needed a receiver somewhere in here, and
yeah,
maybe you just get to each pick. I bet if we went pick by pick, we'd be like, and that receiver went 2 picks ahead of him. That one went 3 picks ahead of them.
maybe Broughton
Um,
could catch the ball.
let's do it, man. Let's do it. All right, last couple teams here. The Atlanta Falcons, Jalen Walker, James Pierce with the big trade up. Only pick they made tonight was at pick 96 for Xavier Watts, the safety. What do you think about the Falcons?
I'm not even going to look at you because I know what grade you're going to put down here. All right. Because I know not only did you not like a certain player, but you especially wouldn't like that they traded up to get him. I
Insane.
gave him a baller grade. Okay. Now listen,
Ooh.
um, the price was way too much for Pierce. Even if you like Pierce, it's way too much, man. It just, come on. It's way too much. But let's move that to the side. Let's look at results. They got two edge rushers at a position they've needed for years. They
Hmm.
have kind of sort of somewhere between ignored, failed to master edge. So they've got two guys here that give them a real chance. I think they were surprised Jalen Walker was sitting there. I think they were thrilled with that.
Yep.
But then they doubled down. We've seen other teams do this. Let's double down on this. Let's really try to nail this position down. So I like that with the Pierce thing. And then they went back in and they were able to go real late there and get Watts, the safety, for help back there in the secondary, which they could use. So I liked it.
I'm actually going satisfactory here.
Okay.
Because I am trying to just grade like the players on the sheet for right now. Um, and yeah, I was lower on Pierce from a stylistic standpoint, but like he was a first round talent overall. I can probably concede that. But getting Jalen Walker down at 15 when we thought you're gonna have to get him at 6 or 7, cool,
Yeah.
great. And they've got enough bodies, like true DN bodies, especially with Pierce, that it's like, okay, maybe Walker can move around. That's where I think he's going to be best. Then Xavier Watts, man, at 96, like I think that's a home run. Like you put him back there with Jesse
Yeah.
Bates, I think that's a lot of fun. So satisfactory for me with the Falcons. The Eagles only make 2 picks. Jahad Campbell at 31, Andrew Makuba at 64. They traded out of their third round pick. What do you got for these guys?
Baller. It wasn't quite what happened to the Ravens, but I thought it was pretty easy here. Um, you catch Jahad Campbell. It adds to that defense. You can drop him in an edge, which is what I figure they're going to do, but they can play him at linebacker as well, which they might end up doing. And then you add Makuba over the top with the safety because I wasn't thrilled with the safeties that they got going on back there. So I really love the athleticism and the instincts. I really like the Makuba fit. The Campbell a good fit too. But the Makuba fit because the Eagles zone likes to play back and then run forward,
Yep.
just read and
Really good at
run.
that. Hmm.
And Makuba fits that perfect. So I was baller for me.
Yeah, see, I wanted to go satisfactory, but it's the Eagles, man. I just can't. Like these guys are all going to work out exactly as they need to. Jahad Campbell, this is the perfect situation for him, and the talent is there. Makuba, same thing. I had him lower, but I was like, I like what he does, and the Eagles are just gonna project that further, right? As opposed to the things he's not as good at. So yeah, baller for me as well. Way to go, Eagles. You did it again. The Giants, Abdul Carter in the first. They trade up for Jackson Dart to get him at the end of the first. And then Darius Alexander in the third round. What do you think about this one?
A baller. All right. And listen, Jackson Dart for me, I think the tape is sloppy, and I had him as QB3, and I just wouldn't have drafted him this high. That aside, I love everything they did here. Okay. They've already got two veteran quarterbacks in the building. You add Jackson Dart to that. If, and let's hope Dable keeps his job long enough to do it. If it happens, he will be able to work with Jackson Dart as much as anybody in the league to get
Hmm.
the most out of Jackson Dart. Whether that's Josh Allen or not, I don't
Yep.
know. But that's a perfect pairing right there. So Dart doesn't need to play this year. Maybe he does play, but he doesn't need to. Just compete, keep your jobs. So you not only have the two veteran quarterbacks for this year, you've got the future whenever that starts, mid-season, late season, whenever. I love that. That's beautiful. But then they didn't screw up the Abdul Carter pick at 3. They still got that little piece of possible greatness, high ceiling there, even though they didn't, quote unquote, need an edger. Totally get it. But they kept Abdul Carter. And then you bring in Darius Alexander because, boy, the defensive tackle position here away from
Dexter Lawrence. Hmm.
yeah, away from Lawrence was a huge fall off. So now you add in Eric Alexander here, who doesn't have to carry the burden. He just gets after the quarterback whenever he can. I thought this was beautiful work by the Giants.
Baller for me. I love all three of these players. All three of these guys are in my top 40, and they get them in the first 65 picks. Abdul Carter's fantastic. Um, I love this. This is great. Go Giants. Way to go. I also said that 2 years, 3 years ago when they took Thibodeau and Evan Neal, and that didn't work out. But you know what? We march on. We march on. The Washington Commanders, second to last team. They take Josh Connerly in the first. They take Trey Amos in the second. No third round pick. That I forget which trade that was, if that was Tunsil or Debo at this point, but whatever. Connerly and Amos here for the Commanders. What do you got?
Baller, it really feels like the Commanders have grown up, finally, is what I wrote in my notes. Getting Josh Connerly at offensive line, they didn't necessarily totally need offensive line. When you look at edger or cornerback
Right.
or even running back could have used an Omarion Hampton jolt had he been sitting
Mm-hmm.
there, But listen, they had been sold deprived of O line for years. Goodness gracious, and they've kind of sort of got it patched back together now. But they didn't quit with Connerly sitting right there. They're like, heck yeah. So now we've got Tunsil and Connerly. We've got, I think, Biotish playing the center, holding that down. And now we've got probably four guys competing for two guard spots. So we have depth out the wazoo. Beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. And then you get Trey Amos, who you liked even better than I do, but
Yeah.
I don't understand why he's sitting there at
I got no
61.
idea.
But you get to pair him with, you already mentioned it, Mike Sanders still, but also who's the guy that
Tevin
traded for?
Lattimore.
Um,
Lattimore.
Now you've actually got a legit cover guys back there. The safety's a question mark, but you've got cover guys. So this was beautiful for me.
Yeah, this is baller. It's hilarious because when we did our war room on them, I was like, go get your fifth offensive lineman, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But they actually did it, and I can't believe it. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is the best their offensive line has ever been. And this is the year they finally take one in the first round. Whatever. That's what
right.
happens when the right leadership comes in.
Yes.
This is baller. I love these two guys, two of my top 39. Connerly is my 18th or 19th, no, 17th player on my board. They get him as a tackle at 29, whatever they choose to do with him. I can't wait. I love this for the Commanders. Last but not least, the Dallas Cowboys, Ben. I'm gonna go first, man. They do it every year, every freaking year. So much drama. The year is tumultuous always and full of hysterical drama and unnecessary
Yeah.
stuff. And then the off season rolls around and we're waiting to pay guys and Jerry Jones is trying to map out where the sun is going to be. And we're talking about curtains and there's memes and weeks of curtain talk, curtain talk, curtain talk. And then they get to their draft, and I think it's Will McCled, right? Who just like quietly is in the background, got his little computer up, his iPad,
Wizard
whatever
of
he's working
Oz.
on, and he just quietly picks good players every single year. Tyler Booker in the first round, Donovan Ezaraku in the second round, Savon Ravel in the third round. Every year, man. And Jerry Jones will screw it up, and whoever the head coaches are going to be is going to screw it up. And Dak's going to throw one bad pick on the wrong day, and everyone's going to think he sucks. But Will McClid just drafts good players every single year. This is a baller class for the Cowboys so far.
Yeah, agreed. They didn't do it the way I would have done it when it starts with the Tyler Booker pick at 12. But that's okay. Yeah, field a need. A lot of people liked Booker. Some didn't because of the combine numbers. But boy, you turn on the tape, and boy, I was totally happy. I was totally fine that they did it. Would I maybe have gone with the Kenneth Grant and then back that up with the safety? But that's not the way the Cowboys are doing this. They're going fast and furious. They are not trying to be rock solid run stoppers, help on the back end. Forget that. No, we are going to go offense, 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 and we're going to get after the quarterback and we're going to cover the guys. So Tyler Booker was great. They actually got with Ezra and Rebel. They got three of my top 35 guys, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
So of course I have to give it a baller grade.
Yeah. Three of my top 36. And I, I said this in the war room, like sneaky need an edge rusher, sneaky need a corner. Like we're paying attention to wide receiver and running back as we should, because those are still gonna be questions at the end of the day. We'll see what they do. We mentioned there's a bunch of running backs and wide receivers on day three. We still
Right,
like maybe they
right.
go grab, maybe they get both of them. Maybe they
Maybe they
take care
get
of both
both.
of that tomorrow. Baller grades for the Cowboys. A lot of baller grades. Overall, great draft so far. Great first two nights. Ben, thank you so much for being on here with me. It's a late night for us, but it usually is. We'll go get ready for day three. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Please like, please subscribe to the channel. Please check out everything we got on Box Score Network. We're not leaving YouTube once the draft is over. We will still be here. We have all of our audio podcasts. Make sure you check all those out. Thank you all so much. We will talk to you again soon. Enjoy draft weekend.